Hi, welcome to Adventuring for Knowledge. This is adventure call number 1.
Guess what? This is adventure call number 2.
And what comes after 2, Manny?
Is it 3?
Yep, you got it. It's adventure call number 3.
Last call. Welcome to our podcast.
It's adventure time.
All right, welcome everyone.
And we're live.
We're live, ladies and gentlemen. We're here.
Who are we here with, Manny?
Yeah, it's Brody's birthday.
It's my birthday. Holy crap.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. We're here with Stephanie Yu.
Hi.
We are at her grandparents' house.
Her parents' house.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even live here. We just broke into her house to record a podcast, right?
Precisely. Yep.
And
we're eating donuts.
and to water the plants.
And to water
yes.
plants.
I had to water the plants and get the mail and take out the trash.
Yeah.
And eat our donuts.
And eat donuts.
And
Yes.
then maybe record a podcast and then leave. We didn't really come here for a podcast. We just came here to eat donuts, hang out with
Yeah.
Stephanie, and water her
Just
parents'
chill.
plants.
I just came here to meet your wife and girlfriend.
Honestly,
Like, not
we
even
go.
you guys.
Friends, yeah, we're not even that important.
No, just kidding.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for having
Yeah,
us.
thanks,
We
course.
thanks for
appreciate it.
having us. It's
Very
awesome.
kind. But there's not a lot of people in this planet that with an email even answer the email and say, hey, you know what? Let's give these people a try. So
Answer the email within the first half an hour.
No, she answered the mail
You
within
guys
the
were
first 2
lucky.
minutes.
I was on my email like the minute it came in, so I like saw it go to the top of my inbox and I was like, okay, I'll look at it. But yeah, I've always been interested because I reply to almost every message and every email that I get
Yeah.
in some way. Like I might not always write something, but I'll always acknowledge it. And people are always shocked. I'm like, why do you think I'm here? Like I'm not here to
reply
ignore
emails.
people or like,
Yeah,
I don't put my
exactly.
email out just to get emails and not to reply, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my personal stance, I
Well,
guess.
good on you, because that's a good trait.
Exactly.
It's reliable.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. No, for sure.
So just for those of you who don't know, I'm going to give a brief description of Stephanie.
Ooh,
and of course,
can't wait to hear this.
you're going to elaborate this when we ask everything, all the questions that we have for you. So Stephanie Yu is a successful YouTuber. She's a publisher, a world traveler. And she has inspired a lot of people, including myself, including Hope, Gabby, Brody, with regards to the journey that you have been taken to have a relationship with food in a vegan perspective. So thank you for motivating us. And that's why we're here. And we want to know more about you. We want to get to know you more in a deeper level. So hopefully after this conversation, you get to know us as well.
Perfect.
And we can keep the relationship going.
Sounds good. Yeah, like I said, I'm an open book, so just ask anything and I'll do my best to answer.
Perfect.
And I love these because I always learn about myself during these conversations too, because people always ask interesting questions that I've never seen from that perspective. So yeah, I'm
Nice.
excited.
That's what we're all about.
I feel like podcasts are awesome because you actually reflect on your life as well.
100%.
When you are talking about it. I love conversating with new people and getting to know them.
And I think we don't do that enough. It's just reflecting on ourselves. And some people don't have the ability or knowledge to know how to properly do that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that the amount of time that we give to long form conversations and just meeting people face to face and understanding each other on a more substantial level is kind of like a lost art.
Yeah, it
doesn't
doesn't,
really happen
doesn't
much.
exist anymore.
No.
That's awesome that you said that, because that's one of the reasons why we did that, or why we started this podcast, is to
Getting to know people.
yeah, to actually have meaningful conversations with people, because that doesn't exist as much anymore, because we're so consumed in
Yeah.
social media and all that, which is not a bad thing. And I think you're an example of using social media for a positive, such a positive thing, but it can be toxic in some ways.
No, for
Right?
sure. Yeah.
So let's start it. So let's start with...
let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So tell us more about yourself from your childhood, where you grew up, and if you want to touch on specific subjects, we'll expand on whatever we feel.
Well, so taking it back to the beginning, I actually was born in San Diego, California. And then we moved to Burnaby, which is a suburb in Vancouver, when I was 1. That's when my little brother was born, and my big brother was always here on planet Earth.
So you didn't enjoy the sun.
Sorry?
You didn't enjoy the sun.
Not that I can remember, at least, but I've always loved being in
Do you
the
have an
sun.
American citizenship?
I have an American birth certificate, so
Okay.
I
You
could,
could,
but I
but
just
you're
had never gotten around to
Right.
it.
You're
I thought
Canadian.
I would for school, but yeah.
Yeah.
Canada
I'm
and
Canadian,
BC, so
Nice.
beautiful. You just don't want to go.
You know,
And also,
it's the
I
best
traveled
place.
so much
Yeah.
that now I'm pretty happy here. But
Nice.
anyways, yeah, I came to Burnaby. We lived there until I was in grade 2, and then we moved here into this house that you guys are in right now. And that's
Where we broke into.
yes, where you broke into exactly. And during that time, we went through a big shift in my family. When we were living in Burnaby, I just remember being very carefree and happy, and obviously that came with age. I was just a younger age at that time. But I remember my mom was always rooted in friends and community too. Whoa, sorry, my voice cracked. She had a lot of friends that were like neighbors or people that lived above her and below her. And in Burnaby, there were more maybe like new immigrants too. So I think that she just felt like she had friends and a place of belonging.
It's a whole community, yeah.
Yeah, and then when we moved here, because we lived in a really small apartment in Burnaby, and there were people all around, and we always had, other kids over at our place. But yeah, now we come to this house here, and we're just on the cusp of Shaughnessy, which is the most wealthy neighborhood in Vancouver, but we weren't that wealthy at all. We just kind of found this place, and it was a really low price, and because it was on such a busy street, it was a lot cheaper than it would have been for the size. But anyways, suffice it to say, my mom and all of us sort of just became a lot more isolated because of it. She didn't really have a community outside. We don't know our neighbors here.
Yeah.
But I didn't really feel the effects of that much, just because I'm naturally a little bit more extroverted, and I was also a dancer, so I grew up dancing since the age of 4. And so I've always had a lot of friends from dance, and I made a lot of new friends at the school that we went to. But I did notice that, something did change for my mom. And then the relationship between my mom and dad also just got a lot more strained and toxic. And it was always very difficult and tumultuous. I remember one of my first memories was being 3 or 4, hiding under the kitchen table because my father was throwing plates around and obviously, aiming at my mom. But yeah, so it was just, I remember that memory sticking out in my mind all throughout my childhood. And so I always sort of saw my father in a negative light. And I never really, after that instance, I never I think had the naive innocence of just thinking my parents were perfect and like gods, because I knew that they were flawed. I knew that my father was doing things that he wasn't supposed to do, like quote unquote. Obviously I had a very black and white understanding as a kid. There's a lot more nuance and subtlety that goes into the relationship now that I can relate to and empathize with, especially with him. He was struggling a lot with his own sort of insecurities and
it's life,
Yeah, it's life, and
life
it's hard.
happened. It changed the course of everything.
Yeah.
And then from there,
so I was all of elementary school, I was dancing a ton and just, going through the movements, and I had a lot of friends. I loved life. And then in high school, very similar. I've always loved reading and writing, and I was always such a book nerd, and did really well in school. And I loved school. I loved the teachers. I loved studying.
Learning.
Yeah, I loved learning.
I wish I was a book nerd in high school.
Yeah. Well, it was a good balance because I was not forced, but I always had to go to dance too. So I was able to just take some distance and come back. But
best of both worlds of athletics and studies. It's so good.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But by around grade 10, grade 11, I was dancing a lot, probably too much. And just, it was like I had one foot in the academic world and one foot in the dance world, and I wasn't able to compromise either. I didn't want to sacrifice anything, but I wanted to do everything.
To keep doing both.
Yeah, and I was dancing, just the people that were dancing the same amount as me all were doing the half day schooling. But I just
You're let's
refused.
go.
Yeah. And it definitely took a toll on me, just physically from doing so much. And then in my grade 11 year, the dynamic around my house just got worse and worse, and it was already really bad in grade 9. And there was this incident where he was hitting me, and it was on the stairs actually. And because of that, I went and talked to my high school counselor, and So he got social services involved. And so after that, for a year in grade 10, it was a lot better. And I guess I just thought that it had taken a turn. But in grade 11, it got worse again. And I was just so stressed out I thought I was going to go to the States at the time for university. So I was, scrambling all over the place trying to prepare for SATs and just getting my application in order. And then obviously also dancing a ton. And then with what was going on with my family, I wasn't really sleeping because my parents' bedroom was right beside mine. And so, I could just hear them fighting every night. And I would stay up just to make sure that when they stopped fighting, that my mom was, okay. And then I would go to sleep after. And then slowly, I think I just developed this is all in retrospect, but I suspect that I developed like a fear of sleeping just because I associated sleep with something bad happening to my mom. And so I guess my health really started to deteriorate around then. And
your mental health?
Both, yeah.
Did you talk to anyone about it? Sorry.
No, I mean, this is something that I talk about so openly now, not just to
which
talk
is awesome and so good.
Right, but it's mostly because if I could reach someone that was in the same place as me, where I felt so much shame around what was going, I thought my family was like broken. I thought there was something wrong with my family, but now it's like, no, everyone's family has, stuff that we go through, and no one's perfect, and we shouldn't feel shame or stigma around opening up around these things.
Humans are far from perfect.
Yeah, we're messy creatures for sure.
We're messy. We are messy creatures.
So you feel like your counselor at school helped you in some sort of way?
My counselor was amazing, but even then I didn't want to, I don't know, I just felt so much shame around it. And also growing up in there was definitely this elephant in the room of don't tell anyone what happens, shh, you're not supposed to tell anyone, not even your best friends, that kind of a tone.
Is that something that you wish you told yourself back then? Hey, you know what? Talk to someone. Like people who are going through the same thing, do you recommend them to talking to someone, especially a counselor, a psychologist? I definitely
recommend other people be able to find someone that they can be honest with. But I mean, I don't really play the game of regrets. I just think that
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't benefit me in any way, but for sure for, in the future and for other people that are going through something similar, when we're struggling and when we're in shame, I think the best thing is to be able to have someone that can meet what you're saying with empathy. And that really heals so much shame, I think, and takes a lot of courage too.
So much courage.
But back to around grade 11, because of the lack of sleep, I was starting to have a bunch of physical effects. And one of them was that I just had a severely, severely depressed appetite. All throughout my childhood, I just ate and I loved food. And my mom has the most carefree, passionate love for food. And so I obviously just modeled my behavior after her, and I didn't understand what calories were. And I actually feel really lucky because even though I was dancing so much, the influences around me were all very positive. I remember my ballet teacher would make an effort every time we had class to eat her dinner in front of us, because she knew that we were dancing the most and at the company level, and if anyone was going to be susceptible to the messages of body image, it would be us. And so she always saved her dinner and ate it in front of us. And
that's awesome.
And would always try to emphasize it. But I guess the nature of dance, it's hard to get away from the fact that you are still looking at your body in a leotard all day. So definitely affected me in some ways, but not as much as I think it could have. But because of my appetite, actually, I started to just naturally not want to eat a lot. And I just started eating a lot less. And because of that, I started to lose weight, and people started to notice maybe a month or two into it. And I have to say, when I realized that I was losing weight and able to have an effect on something in my life, I loved it, and I latched onto it, and I became obsessed with it. And slowly I developed an eating disorder. And the next thing I knew, it was I woke up and food and controlling my food was my life. And I was anorexic, and just my life was revolving around what I ate and what I didn't eat. And it was very isolating, very lonely, very sad time, in my life. But
was there a low point that kind of was the catalyst for change? Was there a specific event that made you go, I need to change right now?
No, I like it. Snaps
Yeah.
and everything.
Right.
Yeah, there was. It's so interesting that we're in this house because so many of my memories took place here. But yeah, I remember coming home from my part-time job in the summer, and my mom was in the kitchen right there, and she was looking at a picture of me from when I was like in grade 9 or grade 10, and I was obviously like healthy and like laughing or something in the picture, and she was crying and just like sobbing over the picture, and I think it was like she was mourning this like death of the daughter that she once knew, because by that time I really was like a ghost of a person. Like I had no personality. I like did not want to see friends. My friends didn't recognize me either, not just physically, but the person that I was always so bubbly and laughing and, happy. And I just, all that sort of disappeared. And
your relationship with your parents changed as well?
Yeah. Well, with my mom for sure, because she just became very, I think she became like obviously very worried, and she cared a lot about what was going on. But the biggest thing that I wasn't expecting was she was also angry. She was angry, I think, that I was doing this to myself because she couldn't understand why I would need to feel this way. And you see, I didn't know what to do with that anger either, because I was also so angry at myself. And so, like in reflection, I realized that a lot of this happened because of my own self-loathing and self-sabotage in some way. It's like I needed to make the physical experience of my life match my internal thoughts about myself. And so the fact that I looked all sickly and I was suffering, it was almost like some sense of karma or justice in my weird warped brain at that time. Now I understand that that's really the exact opposite way that you want to go, but it was very
but at the time, I feel like you were going through so much in your life with regards to your parents overloading, not sleeping, that you kind of wanted to reflect that psychologically and without even noticing in your body. And not eating was the route to that. And then what happened?
Well, I just want to clarify a little bit, because I do think that a lot of the times people that suffer from eating disorders feel shame for the fact that they do, because they feel like they had such a perfect life and they shouldn't, it doesn't make sense that they did. So they don't feel comfortable opening up about it. And I just want to say that, anyone can be depressed. Anyone can suffer with these things. They don't have to have like family issues or whatever. It just happened in the case that I did, but just in case anyone's listening and feeling like,
it can happen to anyone.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot your question.
You answered it pretty much.
And so how did you get introduced to veganism? Was it like that quick of a change? There's the snap again. That quick of a change from that moment of seeing your mom crying over what you used to be, and that, what did you research diets? Did you, what did you do?
So, after that, scene in the kitchen, I remember I like ran upstairs to my room, and I think for the first time throughout this whole journey, when I looked in the mirror, I really saw myself. I saw what I looked like to other people. I didn't see what was, just my warped image of myself. And so because of that, I was like, holy, like I am skin and bones.
Don't
like,
worry, we have an explicit mark on our
Holy
podcast.
shit.
Holy shit. Yeah.
What happened? Like, how have I done this to myself? And before then, I would always classify myself as like a logical, intelligent person. So I'm like, how did my most intelligent self bring me to a place that was clearly so destructive? And so I was like crying, but basically I just finally saw with clarity. And so in that moment of clarity, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do something, because this moment might like vanish just like this. So I called my family doctor, like maybe 2 minutes after I was looking in the mirror. I like ran to the phone, called my family doctor, and made an appointment with him. And I was like, it's an emergency, I need to see him.
How old were you?
So it's grade 11.
Grade 11, yeah.
16,
17.
Something like that, yeah.
16 turning 17.
So I saw him, and he did the very typical, like, stand on the scale, your BMI is this, you're underweight, blah, blah, blah. And he told me, and I really do think that it was out of care and consideration for me, but his advice for me was to go and just like eat Wendy's and McDonald's and pastries and junk food. And he just wanted me to gain the weight quickly. But to me, in my mind, I was like, that's not a sustainable way to live. So I'm just, not going to do that.
And why would a doctor introduce those potential habits?
Right.
Yeah. There's other ways of getting around it. So you Googled.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
So I
the bad
Googled
up
a bunch
above.
of, I Googled like specifically how to gain weight healthfully.
Nice.
And because of that, I just got a lot of different hits around health. And up until that point, I'd never looked into nutrition or health. I just ate what my parents cooked or ate what my friends were eating and, just didn't really think twice about it. But yeah, then I started reading and writing and watching all these documentaries. I watched Forks Over Knives. But I should clarify, up until that time, this was maybe like a 2-3 month period where I'm researching and reading into it. And during that time, I was just eating a normal diet, but just eating a lot more. So I was already gaining weight through that. And I'd already gained a fair amount of weight.
Yeah.
And then like a few months into it, I saw Forks Over Knives. I watched the documentary and then I went vegan overnight. And then I was
Really?
still,
Nice.
yeah.
That was one of my questions. Did you ease into it or did you just go,
No, I'm such
I'm
a,
vegan now?
I'm
Go
very,
go big or go home.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's the same with us.
Yeah.
If we're gonna do something, we're gonna do it the right way, and we're gonna do it now.
I always
That's
joke
awesome.
with my friends, like, if I'm going to set an alarm, I wake up at 5. Otherwise, I sleep in until like 11. Like, that's just me. I'm so extreme. And it's something that I would love to work on, but it's just my personality.
This guy wakes up at 4.
Yeah? Okay, I'm not on your level yet. Maybe one day.
No one should be on his level.
Oh, I'm good.
Right, Hope? No one should be on his level.
So, yeah, I went vegan overnight and I was following a bunch of people. That's why I made my Instagram account. I was just wanting to know what I could eat besides oatmeal because that's all I really knew. And peanut butter and jam sandwiches.
Yeah.
Just eating a lot of those. And yeah, I followed a bunch of people and saw they were making their food all nice. And I remember like a few months into being vegan, I was like, I'm going to make my oatmeal all pretty too. And so I did. And I took a picture with my mom's phone because I didn't have an iPhone at the time. And I posted it. And then just like slowly I did it like a few weeks and it just started growing from there. And yeah, that's how my oatmeal blog got started. I always call it my oatmeal blog.
Really?
That's really for I swear a year it was just oatmeal.
That's awesome. That's my favorite go-to.
Yeah, me
is
too.
oatmeal.
What
So
is your
my
favorite oatmeal?
Right now, I really like it with some chia pudding. I cook it with almond milk and almond extract,
Nice.
which is amazing. It makes it so good. And I cut like a banana into it, cinnamon, peanut butter.
Oh,
That's it. Yeah.
so good.
That's good.
Have you ever tried adding tahini to your oatmeal?
Oh, I love tahini.
You're the first person who adds tahini to their oatmeal.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, well,
That way it
tahini
lasts
is
you.
like Chinese peanut butter. Or
Yeah.
like Middle Eastern peanut butter.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't really eat peanut butter, but we eat a lot of tahini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Interesting.
So
That's
was this
awesome.
in YouTube or
This was on Instagram.
on Instagram?
Yeah.
So you have your oatmeal blog. You
Yeah.
said it.
Yeah. Yeah, food blog. Exactly.
Every week you posted your oatmeal.
Yeah, like it was just like a fun thing. Like I didn't
Yeah,
think
exactly.
anything of it
Yeah.
at all, for sure. And even the name of Happy and Healthy came because 11/11. Whenever I saw it, I'd make a wish. Like ever since I was really young.
Yeah.
Because I remember my mom was like, "This is a magic number," and I was like, "Okay." But yeah, I'd always wished to be happy and healthy, and
Yeah.
so when I was choosing the name, I just decided to
Happy
name
and
it.
healthy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's also very like, childish. If I was really trying to, or
not
not
at
childish,
all.
but like very like whimsical. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like if I
Light.
was going into it very
Well, you were excited.
decisively and strategically, I probably wouldn't have chosen such a long name. But
Yeah.
at the time it was just
An exciting, fun thing to
Yeah,
do.
what you felt, and that's important.
yeah.
And I feel like
Express what you should express what you feel. You shouldn't try to dilute it or censor it
yeah.
any way to try to sell it. You should just say it.
But
Just say it.
I knew nothing as in depth as what you were saying at the time. Even though I was
No.
just like,
Hello, everyone. I hope you are enjoying the podcast. It was a beautiful podcast to record. We learned a lot. Unfortunately, we lost about 2 minutes of recording at this point in time. My wife, thankfully, started recording with her phone because she noticed something really funky going on with the software that we're using. So she recorded it with her phone. So thank you, Hope, so much. I love you. So we recovered most of the recording session, but the quality is going to be a little bit different because it is from an iPhone. Thankfully, we noticed this at about an hour and 10 minutes, and we started recording again with the microphone, so the quality will improve for the last 20 to 30 minutes. And at this point in the recording, she's talking about her relationship with food when she was a vegan, specifically raw veganism. So here we go.
Because it was so extreme and my mindset around it was not healthy. It was just obsessive. Like, if, let's say I was, at the time when I was raw, if someone had offered me like a bite, like one tiny bite that's not enough to ruin or impair anything in my digestive system or like my health really, like just one bite of like rice, I wouldn't have eaten it. Because I was just so far down in this mindset. It was like a hole. So, I mean, as soon as the ridiculous nature of how I was acting was more apparent to me, like I wouldn't eat it just because it was like cooked. I was like, well, what am I doing? Like, this is another way where I was confused because I'm like, I'm an intelligent person. How did I come so far down this like?
That's another epiphany that you had.
Right.
And how did you got to this point? Did you reflect it, write it? You started using yourself and looking at yourself in YouTube videos. How did you reach this conclusion?
Well, so the thing is, when I was on YouTube as a raw vegan, all I sought out was watching other raw vegans, and all I heard about was positive things about what I was doing from other raw vegans. So it's, like I said, it's just like an echo chamber. But for the most part, it was the fact that I was starting to not feel very good, and also feeling like I was kind of a crazy person, you know? Like, why wouldn't I just eat a bite of rice? Like, what the heck is wrong with me or that? And it was a lot of messaging around how cooked food is toxic or I don't know.
Did it remind you a lot of the state you were when you had your eating disorder, that
100%.
obsessive behavior, and it was kind of that same emotion of, I need to change this. It's too familiar and too negative for me.
So your relationship with food, although you went vegan, it wasn't still at the point where you were happy.
Yeah, it was to the point where I was eating a copious amount, like enough volume, but the restriction that I had towards what I could and couldn't eat was still very, very much there. Yeah, and I only kind of, after I stopped being raw, I was still very focused on eating like a certain macronutrient type of food, I guess.
Fat, protein.
No, I was like very high carb, like eating lots of carbs and not a lot of fats. And then when I went traveling, I traveled for like 3 years, and I was traveling with a lot of people that were in the same sort of community, and so we just affirmed each other's beliefs as well. And I went through a period of being very orthorexic still, just very obsessed with healthy eating, basically. It got better when I was traveling because I just wanted to experience things. But yeah, it's always been a little bit up and down, I would say. And it only really sort of cemented itself for the positive when I came home.
Yeah,
and I was
your world tour.
Yes, my world tour, for sure. Because then I was not so influenced by the people around me, and I was finally able to just think what was most natural to me and what made me feel good physically and mentally. And I also went through a big sort of health upset when I came home, and we can get into that later. But yeah, basically, long story short, is my hormones were just really imbalanced, and I lost my period, and it was just...
It happens to so many people.
Yeah, it was just so sad. HA, which stands for hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is basically amenorrhea that you have after you've already had your first period.
Yeah.
So it happens a lot to like young women or to very athletic women, and it's really a shame because it's just a result of a lot of the conditioning and the mixed messaging that we've been getting in society and media. But yeah.
So this dysfunction that you had, was it revolve around the diet that you had? Losing your period, you think, or was it more like stressful, not being healthy with regards to your mind and what you were eating? What do you think it was?
Can you elaborate? Like which time period?
So when you came
back from traveling,
you mentioned that you lost your period.
Yeah.
Yeah. And was that because of your diet that you were eating at the moment, or was that more psychological, like stress, for example?
So it was a multitude of factors for sure. The diet that I was eating was a huge factor, but another was just exercising too much and also traveling nonstop. Like traveling is exhausting. And it's so much fun and such a great experience and I loved it, but nonstop for so long, it just wore me down and I was constantly in this steady state of being stressed, like mildly stressed. So my cortisol was always like raised, but never spiking. Like I was never, or not never, I had a few like traumatic instances, but for the most part, I wasn't in this like emergency fight or flight sort of state, but I was in this like very, like where am I going to sleep tonight? Let's find like a, you know, a restaurant. Let's find a place to do your laundry. Blah, blah, blah,
a safe place. And that's the issue of being a small woman traveling on your own or even in small groups. It's you want to be safe, right?
Well, I was actually really lucky. That's something that plagues a lot of women that travel. But I was traveling for the most part with my two friends that were guys.
Okay.
And when I wasn't with them, I was traveling in a bigger group too. So it was the like physical safety wasn't an issue, but I was just constantly, you know, on edge a little bit. You know when you're like out with a bunch of people and you're having such a great time, but when you come home and you like go into your room and you close the door and you're like,
you decompress. You're
I didn't really have that like sigh of like for 3 years because I was always around people.
Always.
And so it was like it was fun and it was, you know, as an extrovert I loved it, but I came home and I was just like, holy shit, I'm exhausted.
Your introverted energy was like, I need to reload by myself.
100%. I need to recharge. Yeah.
That's so interesting. That's something that I fear when we go travel.
Sorry?
That's something that I fear when we go travel.
Yeah.
Having that worry of like, okay, where am I going to sleep?
Well,
what am I going to eat?
In the beginning, that's an adventure. Like, in the beginning, that's fun. The fact that you don't know where every day is going to take you is kind of the fun of being out of your comfort zone, and it's exciting. But, like, after a year or two, it's not as exciting.
So, like you said, you went full on board with travel in 3 years. That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I didn't plan on it, but I think I kind of skipped over this, but I went to UBC for a year.
Yeah.
So out of high school, I mean, like I said, I loved learning and I loved studying, and I was always such a nerd, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to go to arts or science, so I decided to go to business school because I felt like it was such a versatile degree. So I finished my first year, and I loved it. I loved the profs. I loved my friends. I loved learning and being at UBC. It was such a rigorously like academic setting, so it was I felt like finally people were studying as much as me, and I didn't feel like such a freak. I was like, yes, people are in the library. This is so great. Nerds unite. And then I got this internship in Hong Kong at a hotel. It was a marketing internship, and so I was planning on going to Hong Kong for the summer. And before I went to Hong Kong, I decided to go to Thailand for this like vegan sort of get-together festival sort of situation. I don't know how to describe it without it sounding like a cult, because it kind of was like a cult, but it was just
a vegan festival.
So you went to a vegan cult in Thailand. Nice.
I use that word very loosely, but it was very... Anyways, I went to this vegan gathering in Thailand, and I had so much fun. It really was incredible to be around so many, people that thought very similar to me at the time, and just to be in such a loving country, too. Thailand is so beautiful and incredible. But, yeah, the last week before I was supposed to leave for Hong Kong, I actually got into a really serious cycling accident. I don't know if you guys have seen photos of
Don't worry, we've seen your videos on YouTube about it.
Yeah? Have you
Hope and I saw a video.
Not really.
Well, I follow you for that.
Really? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have this big scar. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Really?
Yeah.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
Was it a pedal bike accident?
Yeah. So like a push bike, pedal bike, and basically we were doing this big 100-kilometer loop in the mountains, but to get to the loop you had to bike alongside this highway, and the highway was there was a section that was on gravel, and it's Thailand, so they were doing
infrastructure doesn't exist in
best.
a lot of places.
No. And they were doing construction on the side of the highway, and there was just like this big ditch beside it, and so I went around this really tight corner, and my bike started skidding out because I was going too quick, and I was fairly light too, and the bike was really light as well, so it didn't really ground me. And so when I went around the corner, I just started skidding out farther and farther, and I hit this traffic cone, and it just sent me flying off my bike into the ditch, and one of the poles in the ditch just like skewered my leg.
Oh.
Yeah, it was And the crazy thing is, at the time, I was in such a state of shock that I didn't really feel anything, and I like got out of the ditch, and I remember there was like liquid cement on my hands, and I just remember thinking like, oh, this is so annoying. Like, I'm gonna have to wash the cement off my hands before I like join the guys for the ride.
Yeah.
And then I looked down at my leg, and I just start screaming at the top of my lungs, because I couldn't compute that what I was looking at was in fact
It was real.
on my body. Yeah. And eventually, like, my friends heard the scream, and they like turned around, and they flagged this Thai person down to call the ambulance. And I mean, because you're in Thailand, like, what's 911 in Thailand? Like, I don't know. Where am I? On the side of a highway, come get me? Like, track this phone call? I don't know. So we got a Thai person, and they helped. And this is all, like, I wasn't doing any of this. This was all my friends. And I was just, like, crying and screaming, basically. And then when the ambulance arrived, it took like 30 minutes for them to arrive, I think. And then the ambulance ride to the hospital was just super bumpy and super painful. But after I got to the hospital, everything just went, improved. They gave me pain medication.
Nice.
Right.
They got you high.
You got me high, exactly. And then they, took me into operation like 20 minutes after. It was so efficient and quick and clean. And then I woke up from the operation, and I was in this hospital room with a bunch of my friends around me, and then I ended up staying in hospital for 2 weeks. And then after the 2 weeks, I know, it's like, because I had travel insurance, so I was like just looking at it as 2 weeks of free accommodation. Like, this is sweet. Friends come visit me and bring food. Like, I have nothing to complain about. And the truth is, the next pull over basically just narrowly missed my forehead because it skimmed the top of my bike helmet. And so I was just so grateful. I really, really was. And it's not put on when I say that I truly was, and still am, so grateful to be alive, because I know that, it missed me by like such narrow margins. And so when I woke up and they told me that I just had to be on bed rest for like another month, and then I'd be able to walk and everything would be fine, I just started crying, and I was just so grateful. And I felt like I was given this second chance almost, and more clarity again, like the same clarity that I had when I looked in the mirror and saw that I was anorexic. It was a similar clarity of just looking back at my life and thinking, I've done almost everything to try to appease and please the people that are around me in society, and nothing for myself. And I don't even know myself. Like, I have no idea who I am, what I want to do. And so in that moment, I decided, it made the decision for me because I couldn't fly, because they didn't want my wound to get infected, so I couldn't go to the internship. So I missed that. And then I also I knew at that time that it was the wrong decision for me to go back to business school and to finish this degree in something that I wasn't extremely interested in, and to get into debt, and to, I didn't want to be 22 with this degree and student loans and feel like I had to be obliged to work in the field. And so I took a gap year that became longer than a year, basically. And like somewhere along the way, everything just started growing, and I was able to sustain myself and travel through what I was doing on social media, and it was a great blessing.
During this gap year, is that where your YouTube channel boomed, or?
I wouldn't say boom, but it definitely started to grow.
Were you doing it throughout your travels?
Yeah, for the most part.
Cool.
That's awesome. So what was the main point of your YouTube channel?
It was mostly to share what I was finding interesting and exciting, or whatever was on my mind. A lot about veganism, a lot about travel, and a lot of just my own thoughts, a lot of stuff around recovery too. And I was learning along with the people too, the people. That sounds so bad.
The
mass people.
Yeah, the mass populace.
300,000 followers.
No, I was learning along with everyone else that's on this planet.
It's a learning experience. Anything you do, you're going to learn.
100%.
Like, even with this podcast,
I'm
we're
sure you're
learning so
learning a ton.
much.
We've learned so much. Yeah.
But that's the trap that you can sometimes fall into when you are a figure that is like espousing, advice. You start to think that maybe you know, but it's like, no, you never really know, and you have to always be humble and remember that. But that was another sort of pitfall that I or trap that I fell into, is I started to maybe think that I was above having to take my own advice too, and so eventually I just
you weren't even taking your own advice?
Or I wasn't seeing myself, I wasn't analyzing my own blind spots. I was so quick to be able to see what I could say to help other people that I wasn't recognizing that I still had a lot to do to help myself. And it's not that you have to be perfect to help other people. Like, I don't think anyone's perfect, and there's tons of people that are helping tons of people, but I think this like place of coming from humility of knowing that, you know, I still have a lot to learn is something that I lacked for like a year. And I had to learn the hard way.
The hard way is the best way.
That's a great reflection. I like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Takes a lot of mindfulness. And I've recently gone through that same process in the last 2 years, and I can relate for sure.
Yeah.
So
It's a hard one.
when you came back from your Thailand trip, and you were still raw?
No.
No.
By the time I'd gone to Thailand, and even before then, I was already, because that was after my first year at university. All throughout university, I wasn't raw at all. I was just, I mean, that would have been impossible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
when you travel, you just consume all the good food from around the world.
yeah, that, and like by that point, I'd already seen that being raw was not the best for me, but I still was quite obsessive about eating just like healthy foods, I would say.
Did you ever crave meat?
No, never, which is interesting. And I still don't crave meat. If I'm honest, the only things that I really crave are like sweets, and I can usually find vegan alternatives to that.
We
But-
brought you one.
Sorry.
We brought you
Yeah,
one.
you did.
And we've almost finished it. I've almost finished it.
It's your birthday.
Yeah,
You deserve
I'm
it.
doing a lot. Thanks.
So when did this relationship with food started getting better?
Well, it was always improving. Like every sort of step that I took, it was a step in the right direction. And I still think there's a lot of work for me to do
Yeah,
in my
definitely.
relationship with food now. But when I was traveling, it definitely improved to be around other people and to just like realize we all need to eat, and like, you know, let's not think so much about it. And like, yeah, I'm vegan. Yeah, like I care about being healthy, but like not to the extent where it's controlling my every thought and my every action. And then when I came home from traveling, so the last trip that I did was to Nepal, and I did the base camp track while I was there.
Nice.
Yeah, and that
To
was
Mount
like,
Everest? Yeah.
that was my favorite experience ever traveling.
There
but
you go, Hope.
Come on, Hope.
We want to do it.
you want, I highly recommend
Want
it.
to do it.
I have some videos on YouTube. You should watch
Yeah.
my vlogs.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
definitely.
But coming home from that, it was like the last thing that sort of set me over the edge, because it was just so physically taxing that I came home from all that travel and I just crashed so hard. And I had to move back into this house. I wasn't really making any money anymore. I wasn't able to like be on social media and do anything. I was sleeping until like 3 p.m. literally. I was dealing with a lot of different like health issues, hormonal imbalances, and my adrenals were just very, very like shot. They weren't able to secrete any cortisol really anymore, just because I was secreting so much for such a long time. And it just sort of bottomed out. And I was seeing all these different health professionals and getting all these tests, and it was just a very like scary time to not know what was going on with my body.
Sorry, your body stopped secreting cortisol or serotonin?
Cortisol.
The stress.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it was secreting so much cortisol for so long, because I was under stress for
Right.
quite a while.
Okay.
It just sort of
It just disappeared, yeah.
it didn't disappear. Like when I did the tests, my cortisol was present, but it was like flatlining. You know, it was like just scraping the bottom of the barrel. It wasn't like normally, as she described it, the person that I went to, it sort of rises throughout the day. Like when you wake up, it's low, and then it rises as you like have more energy and you're going about your day, and that sort of naturally falls during the evening too. And that steady decrease allows you to feel this sense of like being fatigued and tired naturally. That allows you to go to sleep. But because I was just constantly like flatlining, I was like never really fully awake, but never really fully exhausted. So I didn't really sleep very well either. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total
It's
sense.
constantly just like frazzled. But yeah, so that period of like 6 months to a year where my health was just really in a bad state was, again, very humbling, and I had to really reevaluate everything that I was doing. And around that time, I just finally threw out every kind of notion that I had around health, and I was just ready to embrace anything, because I was so desperate. Not to do anything outside of this realm of being vegan, but any sort of variation of the vegan diet, I was ready to try. And so that time period helped me a lot with just letting go of what I thought was healthy and what wasn't, because clearly what's good for some people isn't always good for others, and clearly what's good for a time in your life isn't good for every time in your life, right?
That is so true.
Like simple things that took me a long time to understand for myself. Yeah. So it was during that time that I think my relationship with food weirdly improved, because I just started to be so grateful that this food was slowly starting to heal me, and these herbs that I was taking, and everything that I was doing to slowly get my body to a state of homeostasis where it could heal itself, really. I just had a more relaxed, balanced mindset around food too.
And I've heard this with a lot of people when they lose their period. Have you gained your period back?
Yeah, for sure.
And how good did that feel?
Yeah, it was great, because I finally, when it first came back, I remember thinking, I feel like a woman again, you know, because during that time of not having it, I just felt like this like prepubescent teenager, you know. It was weird. So yeah, it definitely was amazing.
Did you start eating more fats? Because I know it involves with eating fats a lot.
Yeah, more fats, just more food.
More food in general.
More food in general. And
Food's
for me, a
always good.
lot of it was just letting go of the guilt and the stress around certain types of things. Like, I just couldn't have any of that. Otherwise, I would be stressed when I was eating it, and then it just doesn't digest as well, and you just don't get to absorb a lot of the things that are locked in the food, you know, a lot of the nutrients. And I mean, there was a time where I was eating plenty and eating enough and eating tons of healthy things and healthy fats, but I didn't have my period. And then it was finally when I was just like, whatever, like, fuck it kind of
Fuck
mentality,
it.
where I just ate.
And then your stress levels were more normal.
Yeah, and then I also just naturally ate more balanced, because, you know, like, I can eat a lot of Card Times donuts and I go there a lot, but also after I'm like, I want some fruit or like vegetables or rice or something, you know. I can't eat junk food all day, every day, but when you kind of don't allow yourself to eat everything you want, these foods start to have this sense of like being sacred almost, where you fetishize it to an extent that's just like weird and unhealthy. And so you want it and you think about it all day, and you're like, oh, just like, if I could have that donut, but oh no, but I can't, you know?
Yeah.
And so it makes a donut so much more than it is, but like, it's just a donut. It's just like dough that's like fried with like some sugar, like, you know? And so now I like have one, I'm like, okay, cool, that's good.
So I have a question.
Go for it.
So why do you think others should consider the vegan diet?
I don't know if others should. I don't think I'm in a place to tell other people what they should or shouldn't do.
Right.
I think that what people should do, and what everyone should do, is just be more aware of what they're eating, more aware of how they feel, more aware of the values that they want to hold and how they want to conduct themselves in this world. And for some people that means eating a primarily plant-based diet. For some people that means eating, you know, some animal products. For me, it means eating a vegan diet. But I mean, I firmly believe that
Listen to your body.
yes, yeah.
Listen to your body. You don't
And-
feel it, switch it. Find books, education, follow people, go to your doctor, get blood tests.
And experiment because you never know what's going to work for you unless you try it, right? And
Okay, so some people might consider a vegan diet, but if
might
you're
not be
not
good for
sure,
them.
it might not be good, but it never hurts to try it out.
Well, one thing also, I do think that a lot of people, when they talk about veganism, they sort of present it as this like golden bullet, like it'll just solve everything.
That's why I asked that question, because I've heard so many people talk about veganism and are pretty aggressive with it, and
like curing everything.
yeah, exactly.
And I
it's
just wanna-
not always the case.
No, it's
and
not always the
I like
case.
your answer. And
I think
you should
what
just
it-
listen to your body.
But also, I think you need, if you want to try it, we have to be responsible with it. And I wasn't in the beginning. That's why I'm saying this. And I made a lot of mistakes. So hopefully other people don't. But I sort of thought that I didn't need to supplement. I thought that I could just eat like bananas and be okay. Like, no. You have to be just like aware. You do.
Well
And
educated as well.
yeah. And I mean, this is, maybe it takes a little bit more work. I think vegans are always trying to argue that veganism is just as easy as eating a like standard diet and it's easier. But like, I don't think that's necessarily true, and I don't think we need to make people think that for them to go vegan. If they care enough about, you know, eating a certain way and having certain values around compassion or ethics or whatever, they will do whatever it takes. And I think it's important to be realistic about it. Like from my experience, it does take more effort to be vegan and to be healthy. Like I get B12 shot every other month. I take vitamin D. I take a multivitamin. I make sure I get iodine and selenium in my diet and zinc. Calcium I get from like fortified things. But I mean, it's just it's not a huge amount of work, but it is a little bit more maybe than if you're just consuming animal products. But for me, it's like more than worth it. It's more than a worthy trade-off. But it does, I think, if I'm just being honest with my experience, it does take some work.
It takes some work, and what I
but a lot
feel,
of good things do.
Yeah, what I feel with that snowballs is the fact that, in my personal opinion, my experience, a vegan diet is not. It is a vessel. It is a vessel for yourself to listen to your body and consciously try to be healthier. Consciously trying to know what you're consuming in order to try to achieve longevity and try to be healthier overall. And there are other diets out there that you can try and do the same thing. Just thinking of what you eat, in my opinion, is good because it is healthier to your body. Like, for example, in a couple of podcast episodes before, we talked about Brody being diabetic and how he's so in tune with his body that he can feel his body sugars going up and low. And I feel like...
Do you have one of those insulin things?
Yeah, the insulin pumps.
Yeah. Or like the blood things?
I have a blood. I have a blood
Do you
pricker.
have it with you?
Yeah.
We'll poke you up.
Can I
there.
try it after? I've always wanted to.
Do you know what? I don't have any extra lancets.
Oh, okay, yeah, no. You
But I would. I would. But I don't want to prick you with my needle that I pricked myself with. More, right?
Gotcha.
However, next time I
Next
come,
episode, when we
next
come
time
to
I
Victoria,
yeah,
we'll point
Okay,
it.
perfect.
exactly. We'll
I've
prick
always
your
wanted to
finger. Yeah, that's awesome.
But that's the thing, you know, like being so in touch with your body health-wise, and this could be, it might not even be a diet. It might be that you're doing exercise here and there, and you're being conscious about it,
Or the
Yeah.
combination of
or
both.
the combination of both. I feel like that is very beneficial.
I think two things that I want to say is some people, I definitely don't want to make it seem like veganism is all just about the diet, and there are a lot of ethical vegans out there
that's
that
what
I
wanted
think
to ask you, yeah.
sometimes get frustrated that the way that they choose to embrace this lifestyle is always just talked about in the food that they eat. Especially, like I wasn't an ethical vegan to start with, but now I am. But you know, in the beginning, a lot of the people that were vegan would talk about was just like the food and the health benefits, but
Right.
a lot of people come at it from a different stance. So I definitely want to, I guess, acknowledge that. But to what you guys were saying about exercise and all that, you're 100% right. I think anything that even puts you out of your comfort zone slightly helps you be a little bit more aware of what you're doing. Anything that takes you out of your routine, you know, meditation can help, or even not even meditation, but just being aware of your breath.
Right.
I remember when I first started meditating, I would meditate for 1 minute a day, literally a minute. And because of that, I was like, it's just a minute. I can't skip it. I have no excuse. But slowly it turned to 2 minutes and then 3 and then, you know, but it's not as sexy to say I'm going to meditate for a minute. People are like, okay, like you do your thing.
job.
You're not
Keep
going
it
to
up.
gain enlightenment from a minute. But it's like, now I can meditate for an hour, and that's,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
it's
awesome.
a different thing, but it's slow.
I think things like that force diet, exercise, meditation forces you to reflect on how you feel and how that meditation makes you feel, how your intake makes you feel, intake of food, intake of exercise, how it makes you feel.
Intake of thoughts, of people's
Right.
energy.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's not really strenuous it's not that hard to do. And it's worth it.
It is super worth
to
it.
go exercise, to go eat well. It takes a little more effort. Yes, I
Like you
agree,
mentioned,
because
yeah.
it's easy to go get a fast food and go sit on the couch. That's easy.
Well, it's the initial step that's the most difficult, right? Like even with meditation, I find that's the easiest to talk about because it doesn't usually infringe on anyone's like belief systems, whereas diet can get a little dicey sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like meditate for 2 minutes a day. Like why not? Like I can't. Like I don't have time. Like 2 minutes. You don't have 2 minutes. But,
You have more than
you
2
know, and
minutes
we
a
can
day.
think of so many excuses, but it's just that initial discomfort of like doing something new that's so hard. But
It's hard.
the beautiful thing about doing something like that is once you do and you keep up this practice, you gain so much self-esteem that
Yes.
you've been able to start something new and keep it up.
And it becomes habitual.
yes, and it's
Yeah.
like it's just such a positive force, and you
Yes.
like can find that you can do so many other things
It
after that.
motivates you. It snowballs into bigger and
Yes.
bigger accomplishments. I feel.
Agreed. Yep.
Do
Exactly.
you journal?
I do.
Yeah.
And that was the beginnings of the book that I wrote. It was it's from that time when I came home from traveling and I was, struggling with my health, and I was really, really depressed too. And I remember I one day went to Chapters. It's a bookstore here. I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, we have
one.
Chapters.
Oh,
so
it's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So I went to Chapters and I went to the self-help section, and I was like perusing the aisles and opening a bunch of books and reading them, and I just didn't, none of them really sort of spoke to the place that I was at, where I didn't want someone speaking down to me. I didn't want someone that was, enlightened and telling me about everything that they learned and what to do. I just wanted to feel like I wasn't alone, because I truly firmly believe that a lot of the things that we go through, most of us know how to get ourselves out of the situations, like we know what's making us unhappy, we know what's making us sick, we know what's making us stressed for the most part, but we just don't know how to change it. And a lot of the times it's the shame that keeps us locked in these like patterns. And so at that time I just wanted to feel like I wasn't alone, like someone understood how I felt. And so when I was looking for a book that sort of talked from that perspective, I just couldn't find anything. And I decided around that time that I wanted to write a book that could help people feel like whatever they were going through, they weren't suffering alone, and that I understood, and that it's okay and it's normal, and it's just a season that we go through in life. And
There's 7.5 billion people in this world. There's bound to be someone
That can relate.
that can relate to
Totally.
you.
well, also that the natural state of where we're at is actually a place of tension and struggle and working towards something. I think this like myth that the natural state is like exuberant joy and happiness and fulfillment is just an utter lie, and it's causing a lot of us more grief than it's
Yep.
good,
I
because we
agree.
start to think that struggling or being confused or lost is somehow a flaw in ourselves, and it's like there's something wrong with us, but
Right.
there isn't. It's just a condition of being human in this confusing world, and that's okay.
And I
Sure.
think it's society's feeding us that information of, if you make it to this place, you're
Yeah.
going to be happy. If
Yes.
you move here, you're going to be happier. If you consume our product, you're going to be happier. It's all bullshit.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
So that was the main motivation behind your book, and
Yeah.
So what was your inspiration behind your book? How did you got inspired? Where did you do it? Where did you find the time to write it?
And what's the title of the book?
It's called A Beautiful Mess. It's
Yeah.
the same as my
Beautiful Mess.
podcast.
Yeah.
A lot of it was inspired by that sentiment of wanting to reach people where they're at, and not necessarily trying to change or help people, but just helping them know that they're not alone, and helping them know that I'm there with you, and I've experienced a lot of these things as well. So just writing from a place of sharing some of the experiences that I went through, some of the thoughts that I had, and it's categorized into 4 seasons of the book. So there's 4 sections, and it starts with fall, then winter, spring, and summer.
Oh, cool.
And so on a broad spectrum, I've seen my life sort of come through these different seasons of reflection, and then downfall of winter, and then the new beginnings of spring, and then maybe like the flourishing of summer. And so I just categorized the different thoughts and the experiences that I had into these different seasons, and slowly the book sort of emerged in that format. And the format came to me when I was at the Vipassana meditation course that I did like a year or 2 ago. I don't even remember, but I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
No.
No, so
I
it's
was super interested. I'm
Yeah,
just trying to get in.
We're like, okay, we're going to go into it now.
Well, there's a meditation center in Victoria. It's really
Yep.
cool. So it's all donation based, and it's run
On
by
Blanchard.
volunteers.
Yep.
And it's a 10-day silent meditation course, and you're not even really supposed to make eye contact with people.
Really?
Yeah, and it's basically the premise is to try to help you simulate an experience where you're doing it by yourself, but just for safety reasons, like it's hard to do it by yourself. But the point is to try to get you inside your own thoughts and not distracted by anything else, so you can really understand what's going on in your internal
Getting in touch with your
experience.
soul.
Yeah, if you want to, if you want to say it like that, for sure. And the actual practice of the meditation of Vipassana is very based on just the physical sensations. So, anyways, yeah, I did this 10-day course where it's like you're waking up at 4:30 and you're meditating for like 12 hours a day. It's just like very
Holy.
rigorous and intense. But I just never in my entire life been around so much silence. Like never in my life have I not spoken for 10 days, where other people aren't speaking for 10 days, where I had so much time to be meditative and introspective. And don't get me wrong, the first day was miserable. Like, I wanted with every fiber of my being to run away. I like could not stand the silence. It was deafening. It was just so hard to be around my thoughts because I was just such an uncomfortable place to be, you know?
Your brain is so fast. It thinks so many things.
And there's so many things that I clearly am distracting myself every day from having to think about that are either rooted in like trauma from the past or just uncomfortable for me to think about. So the everyday distractions of like Netflix or whatever and people is welcomed. But when I'm there and you're forced and sequestered into this like place where you can't run away, it's like you're silent and you have to face these thoughts. It was at first extremely like excruciating, but afterwards so liberating, because now I'm like nothing, you know, the worst that I could do to myself, like, I'm not scared of it anymore.
Yeah.
And anyways, it was during that time that I, in my head, because you're not allowed to write either, in my head I was writing letters to all my family members that I felt like, you know, I had something to say to. And then during that time it was winter at the time, and there's a place where you can sort of walk, and I would always just walk around and look at the trees, and I don't know, something came over me where I kind of saw myself and how I was thinking about how these trees must see so many people walking around from like all walks of life that come to this meditation center, and how the tree sort of experiences all these different seasons, and it stands throughout these entire seasons. And, you know, I don't know, it was just something really beautiful about seeing the tree and knowing that I wasn't alone, because the tree had seen so many other people that had been in the exact same place that I had been. Sounds really
so
like
beautiful. No, it
No?
sounds so
Okay.
beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really giving me shivers because you were in the moment, acknowledging life and acknowledging that this tree was there with you.
and that it had gone through all these seasons, right, of life, and withstood it all. And if it had been resistant to the different seasons, it never would have survived, right?
Exactly.
And so similarly with me, I think I'd been so resistant to allowing myself to experience different chapters and seasons and
Different
like
chapters of your life.
priorities and different like ways that my life was going to unfold that held me back a lot.
Did that relationship with the tree shape your structure of your book? Because you said you had your book winter, fall, spring, summer. Did that have any influence?
Yeah, I mean,
is that where it came from? That idea, kind of.
Yeah, like the seasons, it all sort of originated during that time when I was at the meditation course. And then also at the time I'd been going to this, so I'm not religious, I'm very, very spiritual, but I'm not religious, but I do find so much beauty in religion, and not all religions, but especially my exposure to Christianity and some of the people that I met through that religion. It's, I don't know, I really love that there was this sense of divine love that they sort of held close to their hearts, and this sense of grace. And there's a passage in it that they talk about seasons of life in it, and I've never heard anyone speak about seasons in a way that wasn't just about the like changing of the leaves. So that always stuck with me as well.
Cool. Snowballing into that, you mentioned spirituality. What can you even define spirituality, or what do you think spirituality is, and how do you feel like you've connected to it?
Wow, that's
It's a
very-
tough
yeah,
question.
it's a big
We were
question.
asking, Hope and I were asking this question to ourselves yesterday, and I want to know how you think about it.
So I think I used to have a lot of false beliefs around what it looked like to be a spiritual person. I thought that I had to like have crystals, and I thought I had to light incense, and I thought, no, truly, I thought I had to like chant
The hippie
mantras,
vibe.
yeah, all that. And I thought that if I didn't, I was like not spiritual or something. But to me, the way that I practice my spirituality now is just by, I think, having grace with myself and being loving and patient to myself, and then also extending that same grace and love and patience to other people. That's like the most tangible way I can describe of how I would say that I embody this sense of being spiritual. And also this sense of like, I don't want to go out on a limb and sound too woo-woo, but
There's no woo in this podcast. You can
No.
say anything you want.
Trust me, I've already topped it.
yeah, okay. That anything that happens is really what you make of it. And nothing is a waste. Like nothing happens without some reason. Do you know what I mean? And that's just helped me have more peace and acceptance with whatever I'm going through. And like chances are I'm probably struggling with something, and knowing that this struggle is going to teach me something and help me relate to other people better, or it's going to bring me more humility, or it was just, maybe it was just bad all around and it was just a mistake, but at least I know not to do that again.
You learn from the experience.
Yeah.
What I'm listening is you accepted yourself. Spirituality, do you feel like spirituality is more about accepting yourself and accepting other people?
I like what you said is having patience with yourself. That's
so
awesome.
huge. I'm such an annoying person to myself. Like
Right.
really. So I have to have a lot of patience.
Being
with
hard
myself.
on yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
being hard on myself.
Right. Questioning your feeling, your actions, or whatever. But you just
Just
need to-
annoying.
Yeah, annoying.
Yeah. It's accepting myself for where I'm at right now in this moment without negating the fact that I can still have my intentions to improve. Like I can still want to improve myself and still have ambitions for a better self, but be able to accept myself for where I'm at. There's a great quote or tenet that is spoken in AA communities. So, okay, there's two really weird things about, well, there's an infinite amount of weird things about me, but there's two things that are like really like random, but I'm so interested in AA because I don't know why actually. I guess I've seen the power that it has to change people's lives drastically for the better through community and through like things that people would say is like woo woo, but it's magical. And then parenting. Like I'm so obsessed with parenting books and learning how it affects the way that we develop and shapes people's lives. But anyways, there's something in the AA communities, or there's the quote that's like, what is it? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the wisdom to know the difference is where I always kind of got tripped up, right? Which is really the key of it, though. But I would always fight against the things that I couldn't change. Like, there's no sense in me trying to change it. Like, I just can't, and I just have to accept it.
It's out of your control.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. And then the things that I could change, the little steps, the little decisions to accept myself more, to care about myself more, to love myself more, to respect myself more, I wouldn't take. And I didn't have the wisdom to understand that. And then another thing that comes from a parenting book, which is, I forget who wrote it, but he was talking about how like there's this idea of a good enough parent. Like parents don't have to be perfect to raise good children, right? They just have to be good enough to raise good children. And that really spoke to me because if you're going to raise a human being and shape them, that's like one of the most incredible, like difficult
Things to
jobs.
do.
Yeah. And even that difficult, incredible thing, you don't have to be perfect in. So why do I think I have to be perfect? It's just like this person that's not a parent yet, just taking care of myself. Like I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be good enough.
I love it.
It sounds really like
love it.
average, but really like I'm happy with being an average, good enough person.
Well, you're far from average, Steph. I'll tell you that now. You're far from
You're
average.
incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And I relate to that a lot because currently at the moment I look at myself and I'm like, Manuel, you can do so much. You can do so much. You can be at the top of the mountain, of the highest mountain in the world. Like I want to climb Mount Everest and stuff like that.
Manuel wants to climb Mount Everest naked. It's like, I'm going to be the first guy to do it.
No,
Sorry.
At that point in time, I feel like what you just said with regards to
Being good enough.
being acceptance of what you can control and just surfing the wave of what you cannot control. And you just have to be good enough for yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like it gets kind of challenging when other people, you try to be good for other people. That's when I feel like it gets harmful for you. And you to take a step back and not to be good for other people, but be good for yourself, and that's it. It's a point where reflection has to come in and you have to realize, you know what? I'm not doing this for anyone else, I'm doing this for myself.
Well, another thing is a lot of the expectations that we put on ourselves that we assume everyone else has of us
Yeah.
is just utter, like you said, bullshit. Like no one expects these things for myself except me. And another thing that comes from AA is expectations are just resentments waiting to happen. And I think it's so true. And I started to resent myself because I wasn't meeting my own expectations.
Your own goals, yeah.
And a lot of accepting myself has been letting go of those expectations and just doing my best still. It's not like I'm lying around on the couch like a passive person in life. I'm still engaging in life and wanting to do the best for myself and others, but not where failing to meet a certain goal is going to dictate how I'm going to value myself the next day.
Right.
You know, where I feel like,
I love that.
thank you.
Because you can fail goals. It's fine.
And people do it all the
And
time.
people fail their goals
Yeah,
all the
all
time.
the
You
time.
can't really judge yourself for one goal that you fail. It is so powerful. Because I failed so many goals in my life. And sometimes I do look back and I judge my whole entire life on that one goal that I failed. But I need to take a step back and think, no, you can't judge yourself on that little.
Right, you can relate to that a lot because I
Yeah.
know you hold a high. This guy wants to achieve everything,
And
and
when
I think what you're saying and the point of view and how there's the point of view that you're coming from is hitting this guy really
Yeah.
hard
Well, yeah, I
because
mean, I don't
he's
know.
so intense with his goals.
With my goals, yeah. So how do you
And it's a
advise?
beautiful
Just
thing.
take micro goals? But
Well-
what if you're an ambitious person? How do you reach that top ambition?
Well, it's about having direction and ambition, but also still being open to whatever comes at you from life. Like I can have an ambition and even like a timeline, but let's say I get into an accident or some like I get sick, like I can't beat myself over that. You know, it's about being flexible enough to go with the flow of what life throws at you. And there's a Taoist quote. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Taoism, but it's a really beautiful Eastern philosophy that originated in China. But one of the main things that they talk about is the only constant in life is change. So the only thing that stays the same in life is the fact that everything is constantly changing. And they always compare life, or they use nature as examples, and they always talk about water, how water is such a powerful element because it's so malleable and flexible. Like if it comes across rocks, it won't try to butt its way through the rock. It'll go around it, it'll go over, under it, like around the sides, but it won't try to, hammer its way through it. Exactly. So if we can just be more, like, it's like Bruce Lee said, like, be like water, my friend. But it's very, like, it's true for a reason. If we could be more resilient in the factor of just being flexible to the obstacles that present itself in life, we can be much more successful. And also, I think it's a result of being someone that maybe has a lot of, like you said, goals and ambitions. And I was also always quite validated by achieving goals. So I started to think that my value came from doing these things. So I started to think that I was like a human doing, not a human being. And I was always in such a rush to, like, I don't know if you can relate to this, but ever since I was younger, I remember I had this, like, I always felt like there was a clock ticking down on, I don't know, my life. I felt like I had to
Time is
achieve
short,
something.
yeah. You have
Well,
you want to achieve so much.
Time is short, but it was in a negative sense of like, I have to, like, as soon as I can, achieve something and prove myself to the world so I can, like, finally love myself and finally be okay with myself and finally know that I'm, like, a worthy person or a good person. And I think the last year and a bit, I've just had to stop obsessing over age and time and doing things before a certain, like, deadline that I just put on myself. Like, it's just such...
Just ride the wave, baby.
Yeah.
Ride the wave.
that wave.
Ride the wave and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And someday the wave will crash and you will reach sand and you will be suntanning on the beach. But for now,
If that's your goal, yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like not. I don't even.
well, that is.
I don't even
I'd
like
say
that
in
as
a
much anymore.
metaphor.
Yeah, totally.
She's just gonna stay on the board, Manny.
I'm just gonna shoot down
gonna
everything
keep
you
riding
said.
the wave.
Have you guys? I wonder. I have a question for you both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever done mushrooms?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
I have.
What was your experience?
I've had positive experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Really positive experience.
What did you learn from it, or what did you gain from it?
How
did it change your?
It grounded me because I was
Okay,
really
interesting.
aware of what it made me really aware of what was going around my environment and how do I explain this? Yeah, it just made me really aware. It just opened up my mind of how people were interacting with each other, how people were interacting with me, how I interacted with other people, how I affected other
The whole
people.
environment.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting, eh?
I can relate to that. and this, it's not only with drugs. You can find, or I won't say that doing mushrooms is bad. It's a perfect way, or it's a way
To expand your mind.
to expand your mind and connect with your soul and connect with your environment and connect with other people and actually reflect on what is going on in life. What am I here for? And if you find yourself, like you said, you felt grounded by doing mushrooms.
And I always, when I've done them a few different times, I always did it with people that I like.
Yeah,
And I always
it's
did it
really
with
important.
really comfortable people, and I felt like it's strengthened my relationship with those people.
Too. Uh-huh.
Right?
Well, I mean, it's very, like, 100% is so true what you said, that you don't need to take these, like, mind-altering substances to get to that place. But for me, I found it was helpful because, like, I, for the longest time had this really, like, this view around drugs. Like, I would never touch it, like, not
Yeah.
even weed.
There's
I've
a
never
whole
smoked
stigma
weed.
about it.
Stigma.
Yeah,
And I want to do
stigma.
a whole podcast episode
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Well, I listened to this
Manuel's
podcast.
gonna eat a bunch of mushrooms and do
No,
a
no.
podcast.
I'd love to be there. I listened to this podcast with, what's his name, Paul Stamets.
Paul Stamets,
I don't know if
yeah.
you've heard of this guy, but
My
he's
sister knows everything.
He's like a mycelium expert, right?
Yeah.
He's so fascinating. And I listened to the episode and it just got me really interested in it. After I did Everest or the base camp, I like did not want to hike for like almost a year. I could not.
I'm not at that point yet. I'm not hiked out yet.
So you got hiked
We
out?
gotta go to Everest.
I was so hyped. Yeah.
How long does it take to get into the base camp? It's our adventure day.
adventure.
Yeah, Liege, yeah.
That's my fave. And then take some like Instagram photos along the way. Yeah, at the top.
Yeah.
All right, so where were we?
Mushrooms.
We were talking about mushrooms and we were talking.
Well, I was saying that I like the point that you
yeah.
made about how you don't need to take mind-altering substances to feel those effects. But to me, I think it was like a shortcut to get to the place that I wanted to get to through meditation, that I was always intending to get to through meditation. But it helps me to get there when I know where I'm trying to go. You know, otherwise you're just kind of lost and
Yeah.
you don't know what direction you're going to. But now that I have more, like I've experienced what it feels like to be on mushrooms, it's easier for me to get back to that place because I've already been there. So it feels more familiar, and I know the sense of it a little bit more than if I'm just sort of walking
totally
around
get
blindly.
that. So you are able to reach that same point without taking mushrooms.
Yeah,
And-
it's different. Definitely, there's no colors and there's no fun
I can
things.
I can relate to that.
Right?
It's just a 100% clear comfortability, and
Don't care about what other people think.
Yeah.
You're free in your mind.
Yes, and so I can. Sometimes I remember what it feels like to not care about what anyone thought, and so I can act as if I was coming from that place, even though I'm not fully embodying it. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
that
just,
makes sense.
If I feel like if I'd never felt that, it would be hard to know what I would.
Like what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm searching in the dark, but I don't even know what I'm searching for. Yeah.
And do you know about tarot cards?
Yeah.
Have you experienced or gotten your tarot cards read?
Well, yeah, definitely a bunch of times. A lot of my friends are very into like tarot cards and very into like channeling and sort of that side of the spiritual stuff, and it's really cool. And always, I mean, I don't know the inner workings of tarot card
Yeah.
reading, so I can't say for sure. But for me, I think the magic of it is that it just helps you self-reflect. You know,
That's
most of the
the
answers
thing.
sort of come from yourself, and it's not from the card necessarily, but the card can just, you know,
Help
bring
you get
something
there.
up to you, and then you can speak about it, and it can help you understand that topic more.
And because we went yesterday to a place, and we
In Vancouver?
went, yeah, here
On Main?
in Vancouver. No, it was close to Nuba. You know the restaurant
yeah,
Nuba.
which Nuba? There's
Right, the one in Gastown.
oh, okay, cool.
So we were walking, and we walked into the store, and we wanted to get our tarot cards read and our aura read and all of that, because we are entering this spiritual kind of journey. Mm-hmm. And I said the same thing that you said, that it's the vessel for you to get more in touch with your spirituality.
I think
your
most things
soul.
are, don't you think?
Exactly,
Most of these
most-
spiritual modalities or like answers that they claim to give mostly come from yourself, but they do
Exactly.
give you a trigger and a starting point,
It's
I
kind
think,
of
which
like
is
a
the most
door.
important
Yeah.
thing.
It gives you the keys to the door
Yeah.
to get in.
Well, it's like if you think about it, it provides like an environment where thinking and reflecting in that manner is what is expected. Whereas like otherwise I can't just like walk up to you and be like, so like, what is your greatest fear and how do you think that's influenced your like this, and, you know, but like astrology and tarot
green.
cards and all these things, they just help you like start the conversation.
If you get into that, if you take meditation or doing mushrooms or even doing weed or anything like that, or even journaling, if you really commit yourself and set an environment where you walk in and you say, okay, today we are journaling and clean up the space and actually sitting down, your mind is automatically getting prepared to reflect.
Yes.
Like you said, it's not like I can walk into this house, your parents' house, sit down and say, hey, I think this about life, and give you a whole theory.
Well,
about
I'd be
life.
okay with that. I'd be totally down with that. But you're right. Like the normal custom of life is like, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. Like, let's complain about the weather. Let's like bitch about our like partners. Let's like do this and that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about, you know, that's kind of like the natural rhythms of what conversations sort of go like. And yeah, I don't really like small
Like
talk
even
very
with
much.
even with this conversation, it has evolved all the way to talking now about
Mushrooms.
mushrooms, spirituality.
We have become friends.
Oh yeah. I thought that like hours ago.
So I'm very curious too, right now at this moment, what are your different identities? What do you define as? And what that is one part of the question. The other one is, what do you think other people view you as? Or what do you think other people don't get about you?
So, for example, my name's Brody Keefe, and I identify myself as a badass.
That's what Brody said. That's what Brody said.
Because they asked me that question today. It's like, Brody, what do you like? We were discussing this. We're like, what do you identify
amazing.
as? Like,
And Brody said a
a
bad.
badass.
So wish I could say that with a straight face and believe it, but I just don't. I believe that you believe it though, which is the important thing. And I believe that you are a badass
I
too.
like long walks on the beach, Italian food, and I'm a badass. I believe it.
Amazing. No, I know,
Yeah.
and I believe you too. I think
So-
you
Am I
are.
convincing?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So what do you think about yourself?
It's a great question.
And it doesn't have to be one identity, because I believe that
And it could also be a badass, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's more of us. out
Let me
there.
just steal that. I mean, okay, so this is actually a very pertinent question because I'm starting to shed a lot of the identities that I used to hold, and I used to hold them because I liked the idea of being that kind of person.
Yes.
Yes.
I
Like,
can
for
relate
example,
to that so much.
Yeah. Like
Mhm.
I really liked the idea of being this really low maintenance girl where like I would go camping with like my boyfriend and not shower for like a week and just like love it and just, you know, be like totally like one with nature. And I
Yeah.
loved the idea of being
Loose.
that person, but I'm just not. I love nature.
And you like soap, right?
And I love soap and I love being clean and I love at the end of the day coming home to like modern day plumbing and sleeping in my bed, you know?
Yeah.
But I just liked the idea of that person. And like, if you guys are that type of person, that's great. Like I want it to be you, but I'm just not as great as you guys.
We shower.
We should,
I don't know about
Well,
Maddie,
I don't
but
wash
yeah.
my hair. So.
and I also liked
Actually, I don't either.
I don't know. I just liked the idea of those things a lot more than I actually liked the things, I think. Similarly, I liked the idea of being this very intuitive, spiritual person who always comes from just my natural gut. But to be honest, I'm much more in my head and I'm much more of an intellectual thinking, like academically focused person. And I very am learning more and more to get in touch with my gut and trusting it. But for the most part, like I've always come from this stance of wanting to know the data and wanting to know the logic. Like before if I couldn't understand something intellectually, I would never get behind the idea. Like it's so hard for me to just trust something because my intuition feels that way. Like I always have to sort of
Analyze it.
it and understand it for me in my brain. And so that's partly also why I'm going back to school, because I want to get more and like I want to do something that's more in line with my natural character traits and be immersed in like I said, I loved my experience in first year. I just didn't love what I was studying. So
Right.
I'm studying psychology now or I'm going to be in May, and it just feels a lot more in line with what I naturally do. So I don't know if I answered your question.
No,
So
that
like
was
what are
perfect.
some of the identities that I hold? I know that I'm a very deep thinking person to the extent that sometimes it gets in my own way because I can maybe overanalyze things. I know that I also I love people. Sometimes to the extent that I'm like gullible or naive, where I don't see red flags right away. But I also like, I don't know. I just think I'm a mess and I'm crazy and I'm weird and I'm confusing
and a badass, right?
Yeah, and a badass.
Is that where the title of your book came? A Beautiful Mess?
Yeah, from the podcast and from my own just realization that
You're a mess.
I'm just such a basket case, but like that's okay.
That's awesome. Accepting yourself as who you are.
Yeah.
And Brody, give her.
Oh, I'll give it her.
Oh,
So no, I'll give it. He's like, Brody, give it. I'm just like, yeah, like I totally agree. Well, what are your plans next? So you're going to school, for psychology, and then what? What do you want to do?
And then I want to go to grad school and eventually do research in psychology.
Are you going to school here?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm going to UBC. Yeah.
Nice.
I want to go into either social or personality psychology and just do work around the things that I've always struggled with around similar to what you guys are asking, self-identification, how we understand ourselves in our own minds in respect to how we understand the world, how that the implications that has on our own confidence and our own ability to like the lens that we see when we view the world. I want to do research on just how we deal with these self-conscious emotions of shame and guilt and even positive affects, joy, fulfillment. Like, how do we feel fulfilled? How do we find meaning in life? I've always just pondered things like that much more than anything else, I guess.
So you want to get to know this side in a more intellectual and scientific way?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So because you feel like that is your identity. A more scientific, data-oriented person.
Or not even identity, but I feel like it's more my strength, and it's more
Your strength, yeah.
Nice.
the way that I understand the world. Like, I don't understand it from an intuitive place all the time. I understand it more from a thinking, logical place. And it's definitely a result of how I was parented too. My parents are both always reading and writing and thinking and analyzing, and they're both doctors of traditional Chinese medicine. So I've always grown up with a different perspective too, and always tried to understand my place in the world from this perspective of being brought up in the home that I was. And then, and my father he's done so much work too, and he's amazing. He's changed so much, and his progress has been really inspiring to see. And I love him so much now. And I remember there was a time in my life where I hated him and I tried to get emancipated too when I was 16, I remember. And I would always say, like, you're never coming to my wedding. I don't want to know you. And, I left home as soon as I could. And I wanted nothing to do with him. But now it's like just come very full circle, and
people change.
That's good.
People change, and you have to be open to that and give them second chances, regardless of what they've done. And like people have done heinous things, but I think they're never too far beyond the point of being able to return to.
Especially your family, right?
Yeah, especially your family.
So what excites you nowadays?
Ooh, so much. I'm so excited to go back to school and to be back in that academic environment. I'm so excited to learn more about myself and to learn more about the world and how people operate. I'm excited to become more comfortable with myself. I just see, I think when I started to realize that I find meaning in struggle, it kind of almost lifted it was like a sigh of relief, because I felt like all the struggle that I go through now is like all building up to fulfillment and meaning. Like without struggle, it's hard for me to find meaning in life. And what I mean is, if I'm not doing something and actively trying to get to a place, it's hard. I feel like a ship without an anchor, with no compass, no direction. So
you need to have a direction in life.
Yeah, and I need to struggle too. I think we all need to struggle.
Yeah, I believe we're so comfortable as humans. Ridiculous.
Too comfortable. Especially where we live.
Yes. And we're so quick to be victimized and to feel hurt. Like
people are too sensitive.
We're too sensitive. And this is coming from a very sensitive person. Like, I'm very, very sensitive, but I do think that there's a lack of taking ownership and taking on just the natural struggles that come with life. Like, life is sometimes unfair. Life is sometimes the cards that you're dealt are unfair, and sometimes we struggle, and sometimes people offend us, and sometimes people don't know what they're saying and they hurt our feelings, but it doesn't mean that we have to point fingers necessarily. And I don't know. I
You
just
just have to ride the wave.
Ride the wave.
Ride the
And-
wave, face adversity.
and learn
take
resilience. I think that's a big thing because there's a difference between wearing armor and having this shield and not letting anything in and just becoming like a void to all the things that life brings. You know, a lot of people armor themselves up as a protective instinct because they don't want to feel the things of the world. And I don't think that that's necessarily the right way to go, but also feeling everything and letting everything in is not necessarily the best route either. So there's like a happy place where you can feel things, but have resilience to come out of the things that do hurt and know how to just take care of yourself.
Yeah. I had a coach, soccer coach.
Yeah.
That had a really good saying. He said, expect and embrace adversity.
I love that.
Right? Because it's always
that's
going to
great.
come,
Yeah.
but how do you deal with
Oh,
it?
that's so, expect it. Yeah, that's
Expect
true.
it.
Like, don't
and then
even
when
expect.
it comes, embrace it. The struggle, like liking the struggle.
That's great though, because I don't think about how many people really like when we're in a good place, we never expect that things are going to get bad again. So when it comes, we're like, what? Even though it like
will.
happens,
Yeah.
like we should know.
Yeah.
And then when it's bad, we think that it's never going to get better.
Right.
You know, we always think that the state that we're in is permanent.
Instead of using it as fuel to move forward.
Or yeah, and instead of seeing the reality as just impermanent constantly.
Right.
Like the
Everything's
only constant
temporary.
in life is change. Yeah. Everything's temporary. When I'm really struggling, I just tell myself, this will pass, this will pass, this will pass. And it helps me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, that's
No, yeah, that's
divergent, but
perfect.
I'm
No,
excited
that's
about
perfect.
a lot
I feel
of
like
things.
in
That's
in
great.
my personal opinion, you can prepare for things.
You can or you can't.
You can.
Uh-huh.
You can find yourself preparing for something by having an open mind of like something is gonna go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Always having that open
Yes.
mind. It's essential. Brody, you got any more?
No,
Do I?
I'm all tapped out here.
Stephanie?
Stephanie is just
Boom! Get a lot of knowledge.
in round 9. Brody gets knocked out because with Stephanie the badass over there.
I love
identifying
that.
you
I'm
as a
stealing that.
badass.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name Stephanie. You know I'm a badass.
So what? Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah.
Do you guys watch Game of Thrones?
No.
No. Do you guys? I have no further questions because I was just gonna ask who you think is gonna like sit on the throne in the final season. I've been asking a lot of my friends who they think is gonna win. Let me think. Do I have any?
We like hikes.
What do you guys think of Vancouver? Have you been here before?
I absolutely love it.
I love Vancouver.
At the
I'm
same, go for it.
Yeah, at the same time, well, I'm born and raised Victoria.
Yeah.
And so I geographically, I love the mountains. I love the ocean. But the city itself, a little too big for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something that maybe you could provide a perspective in. I like Vancouver, but I think it's very big and it's too city like for me. And I love nature. I absolutely
So
love
much.
nature, and I love the ocean, and I love so much. But at the same time, I feel like I am lacking the traveling part of my life. You know, I'm entering that point that I need to travel in order to get it out of my system.
Right. Before he has kids.
Does that happen to you? And now that you have traveled, you actually appreciate where you live more?
Oh my
Yes,
gosh,
so much,
100%.
right?
I don't want to. I don't even want to go to Victoria. I'm sorry, guys. That's like too much travel for me too. Like, yeah, for sure.
Oh,
These,
come
like,
on.
I'm just kidding. Okay.
Okay.
You definitely. It's so great traveling, and then to be able to travel for so long and then come home and just appreciate routine, like. Drinking the same like tea every day, going to a coffee shop, going to like a stable job, seeing the same
Feeling
friends and
settled.
community, feeling
Yeah.
settled. It's so beautiful. And you don't like, I never fully appreciated it until I was so unsettled and so uprooted, you know?
Traveling the world, yeah. I feel like I need to experience that.
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah. I think we all do at some point in our lives to come home and be able to experience it. I do have one question for you guys though.
Yes.
Oh, here,
What?
here we go,
Ready.
Brody.
Uh-oh. Round 10.
Collect myself. Let me put my thinking hat on.
Is there any water left?
Let me eat some
have a little
donuts. Okay, give her.
What is the biggest lesson that you guys have learned in the last like 5-10 years? Because I'm
Biggest
always trying to learn from
lesson
other people's mistakes now.
that I have learned.
Like, be as specific as you can too, as
think
much
I'll-
detail.
I'll let Brody answer this first because it's his birthday. So he's been thinking about this. His
Yeah.
24th year, now entering his 25th year.
So
what's the question? In my opinion.
What's
What?
yeah? What's
Okay.
the biggest?
Right.
Like,
So he asked. So Manny asked me what did I learn this past year? What
Like-
did I say? Do you remember what I said?
You have to answer it again, man.
Yeah. I'll answer it again.
So, like for myself, I've learned about humility. I've learned that I have so many blind spots, but and a big one for me is knowing that it's hard for me to learn from other people's mistakes. But I wanna work on that. So I wanna. What mistakes have you made, basically?
Done.
I'm a badass. Remember?
Okay.
I'm perfect.
No, I. What have I learned? I've learned a lot about my capability. the
Ooh,
last
that's
year.
a good one.
And my capability and my ability to take on things and achieve things more than I thought I could. And basically, this guy
Yeah.
showed me a lot because he goes. He's like, man, you can do anything. I said, okay. Like,
Oh, that's so
I could do-
beautiful.
right?
Yeah.
And so I really, really learned that. And I've always been told that because people always tell me, like, I see so much in you.
Right.
You can do big
much
things.
potential.
And, right. And so I think now I'm starting to like really realize
it.
that. And I have this fire under my ass. Where I'm like, let's go. Let's get
can
it.
do
Like,
it.
like I'm gonna, And so I've been just kind of reflecting on what I want
Your
to
own
do.
badassness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My badassery.
Your
Yeah.
badassery. And if you could describe in one word what you want out of this life, what would it be?
Love.
That's a great answer, bro.
So
Yeah.
beautiful.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm not just talking because we were talking about love as we were walking, like not love like intimate love, but like love with everything.
Yeah.
And you can
Everything.
show and share love
Yeah.
in so many different ways.
And I truly
Right?
believe that the word love, I love using the word love.
You love the
word- too. using
the word
I love it. I love, if I really feel it, I will say it. I love you.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I love this experience. I love this adventure.
That's funny. We had about 40 the whole walk to your place. We were talking about love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys read the book, The Love Languages?
No.
we
Oh
should.
no.
That?
Yeah. I have. Or no, I haven't read the book, The Love Languages, but it's how you
Express love.
express love
Yeah.
and receive love,
Yes.
and everybody has different inputs and outputs of
Yes.
love.
And I've had to understand this
Yeah.
from like past, like
Through
thinking about
relationships?
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Your partner doesn't necessarily express love the way that you receive
Yes.
it. So sometimes you don't feel like you're being loved and you feel like they
Yes.
don't love you and they feel like they love you, but yeah, exactly. So how about you? What have you learned and what do you want out of life in one word?
What I've learned so many things from so many people, and I love learning. I
Is that your lesson, that you
I
love
think that-
learning?
yeah,
And that
I
was why
honestly-
we started this podcast,
That is why I
adventuring for knowledge, because we wanted to.
That's great.
We wanted to learn as much as we can and share it with everybody, right? And
yeah.
on so many different levels and subjects, and
Yeah.
and have not just scraping the superficial surface of a conversation.
I'm
with
good.
someone, but
How are
like-
you? I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, like fuck that, like getting like raw.
Yeah.
conversations.
Right.
I've also 2018 was a really good year for me. Like I got married to my beautiful wife
Yeah, she's so beautiful.
that I love. I accomplished a lot in my professional life. So I was automatically putting myself in a pedestal. But at the same time, as soon as I'm not kidding. I was like, oh my God, I'm
the
badass.
man.
I can accomplish
badass.
anything. in
Yeah,
life.
I'm a bad.
But then all of a sudden, I started work, and I kind of didn't feel fulfilled because this is not the end for me. There's so much more that I want to learn, and this year I learned that I want to keep learning.
great.
There's not a cap for how much knowledge I
No,
can
there
acquire.
is not.
And there's so much knowledge out there that I can acquire. And there's so many people out there, so many interesting people out there that I want to talk to. And I want to extract their thinking and their beliefs and values and align myself with the good portion of themselves and the bad ones. And learn, like you said, learn from their mistakes. Because I've talked to so many people and a lot of them, they have done mistakes in life. And I kind of take that into my learnings of the year and of the moment of like, okay, Manuel, you know how this person did it. Now let's try and do it better. That is what I learned. And what I want out of life is I want
In one word.
in one love.
In one love. He wants love.
I truly believe that
One
that
word,
love,
Danny.
love is the key to
1,
everything.
2, 3, 4,
If you love
5, 6,
if you love
7, 8. Come on, one word, Benny. Well, okay, finish your thought.
But let me finish.
I
it.
will let you finish your thought. Do you have your one word?
Yeah, it's love. If you love yourself, if you love your partner, if you love what you do,
Your best friend, right?
if you love your best friend, if you love your family, if you love this world, this planet, if you love the animals, if you go into
Donuts.
the forest, if you go into the
love
forest
donuts.
and you say to the tree, like you said, you entered to this meditation place and you had this deep connection with this tree, you probably strengthened the love for trees and overall
true.
the forest. So I want to learn how to love everything and everyone, including animals and trees and all forms of life. And I want to be a catalyst for change for other people. That's one thing that I want to achieve in life.
And that's why we started this podcast.
Not
great.
just be selfish and work for myself, but actually better this place and this world for our future generation. That's what I want to achieve in life. At this moment in my life, but I know that it's going to change.
It's going to change.
Because what was the quote about change that you said?
The only constant in life is change.
The only constant in life is. I love that.
The Taoists, they knew what they were talking about. Highly recommend you guys go to the Victoria Vipassana meditation.
Yeah?
And then we can talk about your experience.
Is that,
I would love
is that
to.
the one, do you know where it is?
There's a center in Victoria. The one that I went to is in Merritt, BC. It's
Okay.
like north of Vancouver.
Because there is a meditation.
There is one in
place.
Victoria.
There is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Apasna.
Vipassana.
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 Okay. You write it down.
Yeah, well, we cut it.
Oh, right.
Me too.
Is it the same as that?
I don't think so. The Vipassana meditation course is specifically teaching the practice of Vipassana meditation, which is like a school of meditation, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's very broadly sort of encompassing. It's not around any kind of religion or dogma or text. It's just around physical sensation. So anyone can go and have it applied to them. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Sorry, I like hijacking the.
No.
Keep going, sorry. Hard for you not to
Now get out of my house.
This is good. This is good.
scrap.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
Where can we find you?
Yeah. Besides your social, well, what are your social media?
Yeah, what are your
platforms?
social media?
It's-
If someone wants to communicate with you, how can they
And
do
where
it?
can we buy your book?
I actually have a copy for you guys. Only one though.
It's okay. We'll
But
share it.
share amongst the four of you. You can buy it on Amazon. Just search A Beautiful Mess Stephanie Yu. Or you can buy it from my website, stephu.com. And my social media is at happyandhealthy96 on
And this is-
Instagram and YouTube. But I'm not really posting on YouTube much.
No.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, everyone.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, and my podcast is A Beautiful Mess.
Yeah, we'll listen to a couple of very good podcasts, by the
Oh,
way.
thanks. Thank you guys so much.
Alrighty. Well, thank you
Alrighty.
so much for having us.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed the donuts.
I did.
Yes,
I did.
I sure did. I love them, right?
And happy birthday, Brody.
Happy birthday,
thanks.
Brody!
All right.
All right, see you later, everyone.
Bye.
And please remember to be active in your community. Brody, come on. Keep going.
Remember to smile.
Remember to be kind and respect yourself, others, animals, and a beautiful planet.
And please, never stop adventuring for knowledge.
Until next time.
Peace.